been with this case since day one. But most importantly, we had our family members. Sheriff Bernice Wilkins will come forward and discuss the recent events in an investigation that started in December of 1996 and has led to the arrest of a suspect this past Friday evening. After Sheriff Bernice Wilkins speaks, we will hear from the family spokesperson.
Okay, on Friday, February the 14th, 2025 at approximately 5:30 p.m., Kenneth Delton Locklear, 55 of Roland, was arrested at his residence by Robeson County Sheriff's Office homicide investigators. The arrest is in conjunction with the homicide of Margaret Lois Bell. On Wednesday, December the 4th, 1996, Margaret Lois Bell, a 45-year-old female who lived alone, was found in the Evans Crossroad community on Tommy M. Road outside of Roland. She was found deceased after suffering multiple fatal stab wounds to the body. The case was initially investigated by detectives of the Robeson County Sheriff's Office and special agents of the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. After several years of investigating the death of Mrs. Bell, leads slowed down and the case became a cold case. Shortly after I took office in December of 2018, the Robeson County Sheriff's Office established a cold case investigative division. Margaret Bell's case was one of the first cases to be selected and reviewed by that team. In March of 2019, her case was highlighted and featured on the Robeson County Sheriff's Office Facebook page in a cold case spotlight. In April of 2021, homicide investigators executed a search warrant and obtained DNA from the suspect, Kenneth Locklear. Previously submitted evidence was resubmitted to the state SBI lab along with the DNA of Locklear. Earlier this month, February the 5th, the state lab asked for resubmission of a particular piece of evidence. On February 13th, this past Thursday, homicide investigators were notified of the state lab findings. Despite the passage of time, investigative techniques, forensic technology, and forensic science, along with the collaborative efforts of our homicide division detectives, cold case investigators, the SBI, the original responding detectives back in 1996, and the district attorney's office, the suspect has now been arrested. He was arrested Friday evening and charged with the murder of Margaret Lois Bell. We have been successful in breathing new life into other cold cases to include this one over the last few years. As technology and science continue to evolve, cases such as this have a better chance of being solved. This arrest should serve as a message to those who have evaded accountability for heinous crimes that we aren't giving up on seeking justice and closure for grieving families. Now, this time I'm going to let a family member speak. She wants to bring up some other family members.
Okay, thank you.
Y'all want to come up?
Good afternoon, everyone. On December 3rd, 1996, our beloved Margaret Lois Bell, a daughter, sister, mother, and grandmother, was taken from us in a horrific act of violence. She was found in her home on Tom M. Road in the Evans Crossing community near Roland, North Carolina. For 28 years, 2 months, and 10 days, our family has lived with heartbreak, unanswered questions, and the relentless search for justice. For nearly 3 decades, we have waited. We have grieved. We have stood in solidarity with the families experiencing similar tragedies, supporting the efforts of murdered and missing Indigenous women, knowing that our pain is not isolated. Yet, no amount of searching can fill the void that Margaret's absence has left in our hearts. Today, however, we stand with gratitude Gratitude to Sheriff Bernice Wilkins, the Robeson County Sheriff's Department, and every law enforcement agency that has worked tirelessly to bring us to this moment. Today, we begin the road to justice for Margaret and to the individual who orchestrated this heartless and senseless act. May God have mercy on you. We are here not only to acknowledge the moment, but to demand that the legal system upholds its responsibility. We firmly believe that Locklear should not be granted bond. For 28 years, our family has suffered due to his actions. He should not have the opportunity to bring harm or suffering to any other family member, as he has done to the Bell and Dow family and the Evans Crossroads community. As we ask that you keep our family in your prayers as we move forward through this legal process. We pray that justice will be served, that accountability will be held, and the answers we'll have long sought will finally bring closure to Margaret and our family that our family deserves. Margaret Lois Bell's story does not end with tragedy, it ends with justice, and today we take one step closer to that reality. Thank you.
Could you give us your name?
Alice Bell.
We would like to say if anyone has any information that would assist investigators on any cold case or any unsolved missing person or current homicide investigation that we have ongoing, we're asking that you please reach out to us. This case has gone on for quite some time. It's quite obvious, and I have spoken with family members multiple times throughout the years that I've been here to let them know this case has been at the forefront. No case has been forgotten about. I know there are folks out there that will, say that, what about my case? What about that case? We're working these cases. No detective wants to go home at night knowing they have an unsolved case. So I just want you to know that we are doing that. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor for questions.
You all obtained, I thought it said some evidence, was it last April, I think it was?
Mm-hmm.
And you heard from the crime lab on the 13th. Can you say what that evidence was?
That the evidence you're speaking of was April of 2021. At that time, that evidence was submitted, and we weren't getting results that we had hoped for at that time, but other investigative techniques were taking place. You got to think about it. When the cold case team took over, people that were interviewed back in 1996 were re-interviewed again. Some statements changed, conflicting stories changed over the years. Some person the person of interest was actually interviewed. But what happened in February of earlier this month, basically, is something that we really can't discuss because the case is ongoing. There are other things taking place, as I explained to the family this morning, as we speak today, relative to so we really don't want to discuss that in detail.
Sheriff? I'm sorry, you go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sheriff, how are you and your team, how are you feeling knowing that you were able to bring just a little bit of closure to this family after decades?
Yeah, and we spoke to the family about this morning. We hope this brings some semblance of closure. We know that it always been in their heart, and I can only imagine if it was my mom, that been, passed away for 29 years. What I really wish we could have done. It's my understanding that her mother, some of the siblings' mother, just passed away within the last 2 weeks. I wish she had been alive today to have seen this herself. But I take pride in these guys. I know the guys that were initially involved in it back in 1996. I take pride in what they did, because what they did led us to the next step, and this got us here today.
Sheriff, you
Yes.
Mentioned earlier, we talked a little bit earlier, how many cases have you solved since you've been, you all solved?
Okay, since our cold case team was established, this is the third cold case homicide that we have solved, and we solved a missing person case where the person was found buried. That's an active case going on now as far as trying to make an arrest on it.
Can you say, from what I've heard in the community, was that Mrs. Margaret that Kenneth was her son-in-law at the time. Are you prepared to, can you tell us what their connection was?
Where's Brent? You know,
Yes, he was her son-in-law at the time. Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have, can you speak on a motive, or
no.
was there a bond hearing for him this morning at 9?
He was appointed a court-appointed attorney, I believe, and was given no bond.
Are you able to say what that piece of evidence was that was resubmitted in February?
No.
Okay, that's- Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Just, I remember you were at your, it was in 2018, I want to say December,
Mhm.
you were at Robeson Community College,
Mhm.
it was your swearing in,
Mhm.
and you said you wanted to get some of these cold cases solved,
Mhm.
and you were going to bring on or keep on some retired officers who obviously have been dedicated, because
Right.
I haven't covered a case that's covered in 29 years unless the person, the suspect, came forward and said he did it himself, just want to
Mhm.
clear his conscience.
Mhm. Yeah, we were fortunate in that regard that we were able to get retirees to come back and these are volunteers, by the way, they're not paid. So it involves several retired detectives here from the sheriff's office, a couple of SBI agents. Is there anyone else on it?
And retired lieutenant from the sheriff's office.
Okay. Yeah. So, with the help of those guys looking and girls looking over the cases, I think one of the females has been in contact with y'all over the last couple of years, the family. It's led where we're at today. Science has got a lot to do with it, though. Science is evolving every day. It'll change next week. It'll change next month. And I can only hope that some of these cases that we have a lot of evidence on, that it'll bring those closure to those too.
I've been told that Mrs. Bell was a beautiful person, that she was a beautician in the community,
Yes.
and that many people loved her.
Yeah.
So this was a great loss, not just to the family,
Yes.
but to the community.
Yeah. We were contacted by a lot of folks other than the family. When I first came in and mentioned the cold case, that was one of the first ones that people were saying, "Hey, will you please look back into this case?" And I wasn't here in 1996. I was living in Wilmington at the time, but I was familiar with it and all the circumstances around it. So it was kind of, quite honestly, it was a brutal attack, and it needed to be solved. And just to know that someone's been walking around for almost 29 years and not held accountable for it is sickening.
He was just living a regular life?
Yes.
Because he was in
Yeah.
Poland, right?
Mhm.
Could you tell us, what was his reaction when he was arrested? Did he have a response?
Had no response. Yeah.
And you all have been, I'm sure, do you know he was a suspect or anything?
Did he know he was a suspect? Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
For any of the people that are involved in these cold cases that are still out there that all show after 29 years, you still didn't give up.
Yeah.
What do you want to say to any of those people that may know or be involved in any of these other cold cases?
Yeah, we're still not going to give up, and they need to. They need to just come forward, admit to what they've done, get that guilty conscience off of you, and just go ahead and admit to what you've done. Let's get it over with. Bring some closure to these families.
And my last question is,
Mm-hmm.
you said it, we'll all get inundated with people, well, my brother's murder,
Yeah.
my sister's murder. But
Yeah.
like you're saying, what do you say to those people? Because they're going to be next in line waiting to know.
Yeah, I've already seen some of that on social media. What about my family? And we expect that. We had it happen to a few times that we've solved cases. There's no case closed. It becomes a cold case, yes, but it's not closed. So we're continually trying to build leads, trying to build evidence. Just like with this, we are. I can't tell you how ecstatic I was when the SBI called us and said, resubmit this piece of evidence, and then was able to respond back in just days. That just goes to show you how technology and science evolved that quickly.
Because it's not that the detectives back in '96 didn't do a great job.
Oh, no, they did do a great job. Yeah. They did a great job. None of these guys were here back in 1996, but I'm the old one of the bunch here, but they did a great job. That's starting with the crime scene analyst that was on the scene, the evidence that he collected. A lot of that's what has been resubmitted 29 years later. No evidence has just disappeared. It's there, and thankfully, The file was put together great for us to proceed on with it through court.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Good, okay, thank y'all.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all.